I'm Dr. Hannah, and today I'm interviewing psychologist Dr. Mark Heyman, who has type 1 diabetes himself. He also is an author and has a great online community for people with type 1 diabetes. And I've got lots of questions for him. I know that the psychology behind how we live, how we feel about living with type 1 diabetes is so important to quality of life. And so I'm excited to take a deep dive in. If you guys have questions, please leave them in the comments and we can circle back to those in the future. And let's get started.
Hello.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good fine, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I wanted to make this just a really casual conversation kind of interview. I've got lots of questions for you after looking into you more since we connected on Facebook last week.
Happy to chat.
Awesome. Tell me, I just looking through your stuff, it makes so much sense. Psychology and type 1 diabetes, been diagnosed for over 20 years now. And I
Yeah.
wondered first when I saw your content if you had diabetes and then went into psychology, or if you were studying psychology and then got type 1 diabetes. And I was so interested to know if it was part of your journey and deciding what you wanted to do with your life.
So it was actually my diabetes diagnosis. It spurred my decision to go into psychology. I was actually in college when I was diagnosed. I was 21 and I was studying political science. I was convinced I was going to become a lawyer or go to business school or something like that. Psychology wasn't even on my radar. And I was diagnosed. And when I was diagnosed, I was just looking for resources for to help me to deal with the transition because I was a normal college student and I was still a normal college student after my diagnosis, but it was a big transition. I was just having some trouble with trying to manage my blood sugars and how to keep it all straight. And I looked for resources and I couldn't find any. I was
Yeah.
like, this is crazy. Why are there no resources for people with type 1 diabetes around dealing with stress and burnout and anxiety? And so I decided to become the resource I wish that I had when I was diagnosed. And so I had a change of course. I finished my degree and I went in political science, and then I went back to school and got a master's degree in psychology and then my PhD in psychology, and I went from there.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think the gap in resources is even more clear for people who are adults when they're diagnosed, because we have a lot for little kids, I feel like, or more, especially with the camps. But the adult diagnoses, I think, are so much harder. And yeah, I get that totally. And it's similar to my story. I was diagnosed as a teenager and didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had a lot of questions about health and how do I eat and how do I feel better and have less lows and still get to do the workouts I want to do. And so that's how I ended up more in lifestyle medicine, was just wanting to find the answers for myself and then wanting to teach others what I found along the way. Cool. So now you're at a place where, are you practicing in San Diego and currently seeing patients, or are you doing mostly online work now? What does your day-to-day look like?
That's a good question. So I right now I have a small practice where I see patients, although that's really not growing at all, and that's on purpose. Because what I found, Hannah, is that the work that I do is most people with type 1 diabetes don't need therapy. There are certainly some people who do, and there's no doubt about that. But those are people who have relatively severe issues. They have a severe of low or fear of lows that is like paralyzing them, or they have eating disorders around diabetes. They have diabulimia, or they're emitting insulin. But the majority of people with type 1 diabetes, they need something, but
Yeah.
it's not therapy. And so, really, what my mission has become is how do I provide those services and those resources to people with type 1 diabetes? I like to say that if there are 100 people with type 1 diabetes in a room, there may be two or three people who need therapy for diabetes. I'm sure there are people who need therapy for other reasons, but who need therapy for diabetes. But everybody else, the other 90 or 97, need something. And
Mhm.
they need more than just a pat on the back and support from their doctor, from their husband or their wife, but it's not therapy. But they really need their skills and tools to be able to handle whatever stress they're dealing with right now, as well as to be able to be confident and resilient that if they experience stress in the future, they're going to be able to handle it. And so my mission is really to provide people with those resources and those services. So while I do see patients, really where my work is going is providing those types of resources and services on a much more scalable and international level.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And that makes sense. I know growing up, I felt like I needed guidance. I remember thinking often, what do people who have a healthy relationship with type 1 diabetes, like how do they think about it? What do they do here in this situation? Is that kind of
Mhm.
is just creating a relationship with it that feels empowering and not kind of feeling sorry for myself all the time. And how do I shift that? It's just as general, I needed guidance. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It's like diabetes is that little sister that you really don't like, but she's going to be your sister forever. So you have to figure out how to navigate her in your life. And hopefully your relationship will improve. May not be great ever, but it'll improve to a point where you can stand being in the same room together or even having dinner together and enjoying each other's company. Not that you're ever going to enjoy diabetes company necessarily, but maybe it can be just quiet so that you can enjoy your meal without having to worry about diabetes. And that's the way I think about it as well.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And it reminds me of your book title, which I just love, which is Diabetes Sucks and You Can Handle It. Did I get that
That's
right?
you
That's
did.
amazing. I watched you have this awesome video explaining the book. And one of the things you said in there was that you felt like in the beginning you were trying to teach people to make diabetes easy. And after a while, you learn more that you just have to accept that in ways it's going to suck and you're able to handle it. So tell us more about that because I love that kind of switch of thought process.
Yeah, the way the book came about it is one day I've been wanting to write a book for a long time, and I didn't really have a direction or a specific like thesis as to what the book would be about. And then about 5 years ago, a young man I was working with, came in my office and he sat down and he said, "Diabetes sucks." And my immediate response was, "But you can handle it." And then I immediately changed what I said. I said, "Not but, and you can handle it." We have to hold those things at the same time. And so it's really important that "and" is actually a really important part of the title. Really, what the book is about is that in order to come to a good relationship with your diabetes, or a healthy relationship, and to be able to function in the world and to be able to live life with diabetes along for the ride as opposed to diabetes driving the car, is you have to be at this medium of diabetes does suck. And you have to actually be able to admit that because there's no way around that. We can't sugarcoat it, no pun intended, to say that diabetes is greater. It's no problem. It's not stressful at all. And if someone's telling you that, they're either delusional or they're lying to you. There's really no in between there.
Or lying to themselves.
And I know people who tell me that, oh, diabetes is not stressful at all, or it's no problem for me. And I can't believe them because I've worked with hundreds of people with diabetes over the years and at various levels of stress. And there's nobody who can really say that, yeah, I love it or it's no problem at all. But in order to really come to a healthy relationship, you have to admit the fact that it does suck, that there's things about it, maybe not every day, maybe not all the time, but there are times when it's challenging. Whether you have a low blood sugar that keeps you from doing a workout, or you have to choose not to eat carbs at a certain time because your blood sugar's high, or people make nasty comments to you. Those are all things that are just they're challenging. They make life with diabetes hard. However, a lot of the times we as people with diabetes we make diabetes suck or harder than it has to be
Yeah.
by the way we think about it, by the relationship that we have with it, the stories we tell ourselves, and then the way we allow it to control our lives. And so we have to come to this medium where we admit the fact and are able to recognize the real reasons why it sucks, but also rein ourselves in and not allow ourselves to spiral into a place where we believe that it sucks more than it has to. And so that's really what the book is about. And then the rest of the book talks about how to make it not suck less, but to make it not suck as much as it does now. And to be able to use psychological skills to be able to get you to a place where you're going to be doing okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get that. 'Cause I think that I did that for a while in my early 20s as I made diabetes harder than it needed to be by blaming it for things it didn't need to be blamed for or letting myself feel broken because of it and choosing
Mhm.
that mindset over and making it more than it was. And so I love that you're putting skills out there for people.
What I find with a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but many people with diabetes who are very stuck and they have a really hard time letting go of the possibility that it doesn't have to suck as much as it does.
Yeah.
Because they have this, I hate to use this term, but a victim mentality of this is really hard. And if I let go of the fact that it's hard, I'm going to be losing something or losing some sense of control or losing the story that I'm telling myself. But the only way to be able to make it better, which everyone wants, no one wants to feel burnt out or anxious or whatever you're feeling, is to let go of the story that you're telling yourself and to look to be able to allow the possibility in that it doesn't have to suck as much as it does right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you said this story that you're telling yourself because I found so much for me that it's like the repeat in my head of what I think it is. I always have control over changing that. Sometimes I
Mhm.
can't make the blood sugar come down as fast as I want to, but I can change the way I think about it and what I make it mean in my life.
So look at what you how you to explain what that story is. So you have something that happens. So you have a high blood sugar, low blood sugar, whatever that situation is, and that is real. And if you wake up and your blood sugar is 250, that sucks. If you want to go up for a workout and your blood sugar is 65 and you have to postpone the workout, that sucks. But then all of a sudden you put meaning on top of that situation. Well, that means that diabetes is ruining my life. It means that I can never work out or I can never live a normal life or whatever story that is. And that's that the meaning is where it sucks more than it has to. The fact that you have a low blood sugar and you have to postpone your workout, that sucks. And there's nothing we can do about that. We can certainly adjust your rates and we can help you to get to a place where your blood sugar doesn't go low at that time. But in that moment, like there's no way of making that better besides treating it and being patient and then moving on. But then you pile on the story, and then that has all kinds of blowback for your behavior and how you feel about yourself, and then what you do next. And you can see how the story goes from something that's true and something that really does suck to a lot bigger than it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can make it control your actions. Like I might as well not work out because it's
Exactly.
frustrating. And then yeah.
Because you shouldn't work out in that moment, of course. If your blood sugar is
Yeah.
low, you shouldn't be working out. But I can never work out, or I can't work out the rest of the day. It's ruined the rest of my day. Has it really? If you tell yourself it has, then of course it has. But
Yeah.
if you say, yes, it ruined my workout right now, but I can work out later today, or I can just take a rest day and work out tomorrow, there's a different story, which is the same situation, but you've put a completely different meaning on it. And one that's actually probably more accurate and more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I'm really curious in your life, knowing these tools and knowing these skills well, do you find that you have to re-choose a better way to think about something, look at something often in your life, or
All the
does it
time.
come with new chapters, or what does that look like? Is it a
Oh, yeah.
permanent shift?
As a mental health professional, I'm but not immune by any means to the challenge of diabetes or the challenge of life. And I'm constantly reminding myself to use the skills that I teach. Because it's easy to talk about them with somebody else and share with them what I think is best for them and guide them in that direction. But when it's you, it's a lot more challenging. So but I have to remind myself that it's important to do that and to check myself and to make sure that it doesn't get in the way. And I think that the measure of that and how I think about it for myself is, yeah, I have these challenges and yes, I'm going to react to them in whatever way that I do. But how long did it take for me to bounce back and to recognize the fact that I'm thinking this way, to
Mhm.
reframe my story, and then to move on? And if it's a short period of time, if I have a low that just won't come up and I'm just pissed off, but the low comes back up and then I'm still pissed off 2 hours later, that's a problem. And I have to ask myself, why is this happening? But if I have a low, I'm pissed off, and then an hour later I'm doing just fine, then I feel like I've been using those skills appropriately. And I really try to push myself both in my mindset, but really what I think about is the outcome of that is my behavior. So is what's happening impacting the way that I'm interacting with my wife or with my daughter, or is it impacting my ability to or my willingness to go exercise or to go on adventures and do things that are, what quote unquote normal people do. And I think, of course, we are normal, but there's a sense that if I had diabetes, I can't do these things. And if I'm able to do them and they don't faze me, or I'm able to come back from stressful situations, then it makes me feel like I'm in a good place. I'll give you an example is I love to ski. And I ski
Yeah.
regularly in the wintertime. But when I ski, when I'm at altitude, my blood sugar tanks. My altitude and my blood sugars are like I'm low constantly on the mountain. And so I'm constantly eating. And it's frustrating. And I can't ski as well as I want to sometimes because of my lows. And of course, I try to be safe around it, but I still do it. And I don't let that worry or that frustration get in the way of me going on the mountain. Does it slow me down sometimes? Yes. But I also don't let that fact that sometimes I have to take a little break more than maybe somebody else would get in my way of having a good time skiing.
Yeah.
And if I can do that and be an example to other people, that if I go skiing, I scuba dive, I travel, I eat out, I don't restrict my carbs. If I can be that example to people and show them that it's possible and that I'm not special because my blood sugars are nowhere near perfect, that I hope that empowered other people to do the same. As a psychologist who deals with people with diabetes, I don't want to say I'm a complete open book, I do keep things something private, but I'm probably much more open about my own challenges and the challenges I've had in the past, the ones I'm having now, my blood sugars, than a psychologist who is dealing with people without diabetes. Because that connection and that normalization is so critical for the work that I do, and I'm sure it's for the work that you do too.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference when you get it and you live it because that's really, I think, how you understand how to apply the tools, right? This is from your own experience. I'm sure that's where you got better at the practice of it. Yeah, I think sharing it helps a lot.
I asked a question on my Instagram a couple of years ago. I asked people, how important is it that your endocrinologist and or your mental health professional lives with type 1 diabetes? And the results astounded me. It was like 99% of people said it was extremely important to them. Now, granted, we can't multiply ourselves. And so there's not every endocrinologist, not every psychologist or mental health professional who deals with diabetes lives with it. But I also know that from people that I talk to and then people I work with, that when you have that person, you're never going to let them go because diabetes is one of those conditions where if you don't live it, then you can't understand it
Yeah,
and you can't understand why aren't you taking your insulin or why are you scared of that or what's the problem. But when you live with it, like not that and we're not I'm still going to push people out of their comfort zone, but I can definitely relate and understand and empathize as to why they're having challenges and not dismiss them or belittle them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think it is such a kind of a specialized condition that probably a lot of psychologists, but I know a lot of general physicians really don't understand what a life with type 1 diabetes is like. I remember when I was in my training in the hospital, I had one night, I had a bunch of lows and I was up, and the next morning someone asked me how I was, and I said, "Oh, I'm a little tired. I was up treating a low blood sugar in the middle of the night." And they were like, "Oh, you have to wake up in the middle of the night for diabetes?" And I was like, yeah, yeah, all the time. Yeah, but it's funny. I think it's people relate to that is that just not everybody gets it. And we can't really expect them to. There are so many conditions out there. But yeah, I think it makes a difference. And I don't know about you, but for me, my patients with diabetes, it's more fulfilling, I think, in some ways, because I get it a little bit more. And I feel like I can help in a way that is different. So I feel like it makes it more fun to be a physician that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. I love that reframing. One of the parts that I struggled with my mindset recently, I feel like I'm pretty good about not choosing the victim mindset in general. And I got married in October. And after our ceremony and we had dinner, I bolus for dinner and my blood sugar shot up to 300, which I usually don't hit the 300. So that was felt awful. But then my sensor died. So I didn't know for an hour and a half because I didn't get any alarms. And I think it was like a combination of the food and stress and not finding water because I was trying to say hi to everybody. And I was so bummed about it. I was just like, I worked so hard on my diabetes and I've learned all the things I need to know. Like, why this moment? Like, of all the moments. And it's funny that usually I could shift it, but that one I've had to go back and shift. Even like last week, it came up again. And I was like, it's okay. I just feel like it was something that diabetes took for me. When in that mindset, you can't keep, but it's interesting how sometimes those thoughts come up and you have to just reshift, like you said.
But in that instance, it seems like diabetes did take something from you.
It did. Yeah.
And so let's be
Yeah.
honest about that.
Yeah.
It did take away your marriage? No.
Yeah.
I assume you're still married.
Yes.
But did it dampen the memory of your wedding? Of course it did. And I think it's important to be honest about that. Because if
Yeah.
you're not, then you're trying to just blind yourself to the reality that like it wasn't fun and or that you had a damper on that day.
Yeah. Or that I just felt awful and I didn't feel like talking because, when your mouth is dry, you've got the brain fog and the whole thing. And yeah, it is. It's one of those, it did. Like, I just can't get it back and I have to make peace with that and
Yeah.
not press it, like you're saying, because that
But
just,
you also can't do anything to change it.
yeah.
And that's the other thing is that you have to recognize that, yeah, that's past and you can't do anything to change it. On a bigger level, we see this a lot with people who are diagnosed with diabetes, especially as adults, who cannot accept the fact that it's there. And the reality, I wish that I could change it for you or change it for them. But I have to ask people, what is the cost of not accepting it? Because it's reality. And so you can either accept it or not accept it, but there's a big cost to not accepting it, a much bigger cost than actually accepting it. Because if you're not accepting it, then you're not accepting the reality of the situation.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I've never thought about it from that perspective of really looking at the cost of not accepting it.
It keeps you trapped. It
Yeah.
keeps you trapped in your head. It may keep you trapped in your and keep fighting. I tell people I use this metaphor, and I'll use my book as an example. If you have this book in your hand, but if you have if we're sitting here with each other and I'm pushing on the book and you're pushing on the book,
Mhm.
and the harder I push, the harder you push. And now I'm trying to fight this and it's fighting me back. And the more I push, the less I have the ability to talk to you and to be able to pay attention to you. But the thing is, this is going to be here whether I like it or not. I can choose I can choose where it is. It can be here or it can be in my lap. And if it's on my lap, it's still annoying, but I can have a conversation with you. If it's here and I'm fighting it and I'm pushing it, first of all, I'm exhausted. Second of all my attention is going towards a thing I don't want to pay attention to. And then I'm trapped in my non-acceptance. If I can recognize that, yeah, it's here and it's not comfortable right now, it's like annoying me, but I can accept the fact that it's annoying me and still focus on the things that are important to me, like our conversation, that reframe makes it a lot easier. But you have to be able to accept the fact that it's uncomfortable. And that's the biggest challenge of the work that I do is telling people that I can't change how you feel.
Yeah.
And there are going to be days where you feel like crap with diabetes, both emotionally and physically. And my task is not to make that go away because that's an impossible task. My task and your task is to learn the skills to be able to tolerate that stress and that discomfort and still live your life.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, because when you have those skills, you don't stand in the resistance as long and you can shift out of it faster and then you get back to the rest of life sooner.
And the thing is, what people don't recognize, I think, oftentimes is that they already have the skills because they're using them in all the other areas of their life.
Yeah.
They're using them in the tough conversations with their boss, or when they get in a fight with their wife, or when they're dealing with their kids, or when they stuck in traffic. They're using those skills because they have to. But they somehow see diabetes as being some separate silo that like that I can't deal with. Everything else I can deal with. It's not fun, but I can deal with all that stuff. But that diabetes, nope, can't do it. It's different. It's harder. It's more challenging. And we have to break that down and recognize that, yeah, granted, objectively, the fight you have with your husband is different than the frustration you have over a low blood sugar. But the skills of dealing with that discomfort, those are the same.
Yeah,
And you're using them in one area, you can use them in the other area.
that makes sense. And then it's just learning how to apply them towards diabetes.
Yeah, which
And
comes
that,
to a point of acceptance. Because if you don't accept the fact that you have diabetes or that diabetes isn't going away, then it's going to be impossible to apply those skills.
yeah, because if you have that resistance there, you can't move forward. And that makes it sound less intimidating, is not having to learn new skills, but just apply skills I already have in a new way. I feel like that mindset or that way of looking at it makes it feel possible. And so I love that. Yeah. Tell me more about your online community and how you're teaching these skills to people.
Yeah, so I look at my work as a continuum. And so started at a very low touch. I have an Instagram account is my main source of information for at a very low touch. At the Diabetes Psychologist is the handle. So go and visit, follow if you'd like to. So I give lots of tips and tools and hopefully relatable information there. I have a podcast called the Live Free with 2ND podcast that lots of interviews with people with diabetes, with experts, with me talking about different tools and skills people can use. I have my book, Diabetes Sucks and You Can Handle It. And I actually have a new book coming out next year called Live Free with UND, which is basically it's going to be the applied version of this book where people can have a step-by-step guide about what to do and how to apply these tools and skills in their life. And then we have some programs that I do. Our signature program is called the Live Free with You and Accelerator, taking the framework that is consistent throughout the work that we do and giving you guidance to apply it. We do it in a group setting because having that community is so powerful. Getting feedback from other people, hearing that you're not alone, hearing people's experiences, it's going to change people more than me talking to them one on one. And so we do that in a group setting, and we run that 4 times a year. And then I just started a new community. And it's a free community called Live Free with 2ND, and you can look at it at livefreewith2nd.com. And it's a place where it's kind of like a Facebook community, but it's private. It's free to join and anyone can join, but it's a place where you can just be there and ask questions, get support around the struggles you have with type 1 diabetes and anything goes there. So we're happy to have anybody come and join. And I'm thinking about actually having a paid version of that. It'll be not an expensive subscription where we'll have things like accountability groups or group coaching with me or support for spouses and loved ones. These are all things that people ask me about. And I want to have a place where we can provide those types of resources at an affordable price. So
Awesome.
that will probably be coming early next year.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I love all the options you have out for people. And what age groups do you work with? Is it any age, or do you do kids or just adults?
So I'm an adult psychologist, and so we work with adults, so 18 and up.
That's great. I think that's so nice to have a place for the adults, finally. I do a lot of work at summer camps for kids with type 1 diabetes, and a lot of the adults there just volunteer because it's the only place they know to find other people with type 1. It's like we keep coming back just to find other people. So I love that you've got that. I think that that's really unique because a lot of things are so focused on the kids.
Yeah,
So,
I don't work with kids. I don't work with parents because, first of all, that's not what I was trained to do. And second
mhm.
of all, it's not my area of expertise, both from a professional point of view, but also from a personal point of view. I'm not a parent of a child with diabetes, and knock on wood, I won't be. And also, I was not a child with diabetes. And so I don't have that lived experience. And I really think that lived experience is critical for the people that you're working with, that you can relate to them, both from a professional and ethical point of view of me being able to provide services that are appropriate, but also just from a relational point of view. I can't tell you what it was like to have diabetes as a third grader because I wasn't there, but I can tell you what it's been like to have diabetes throughout my adult life.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. And I think that makes it even more special and kind of niche. One more question for our audience that comes up often on my YouTube channel in the comments is how do you, I think grappling with your diagnosis and living with diabetes, that part there are resources out there for. But area that I haven't found resources for is how do you make peace with the financial impact of diabetes, especially as an adult learning, you're probably going to hit your deductible every year if you're on an insulin pump. And how do you make peace with that? Do you have any insight for how you would walk someone through feeling comfortable about that being a big part of their story?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because diabetes is expensive, and there's no way around that. I think there's a couple ways I would answer this question. One is just logistically. You can you can fight in your mind about how mad you are about how expensive insurance is and insulin and CGMs, all those things are. However, sit down and think about, and maybe work with your doctor or a diabetes educator or somebody who is knowledgeable about the systems of how you can navigate those effectively given the resources that you have. They're not that these are easy to work with, but there are lots of avenues to get discounted CGMs and use pumps and things like that, and use that. And the other part of it is, again, yes, diabetes is expensive, and I don't want to negate that, but think about the other things that you spend money on. And certainly your health is really in the most critical thing. And so, yes, there are trade-offs in life, and different people have different situations where you have to trade off different things. And not that makes it better when you take the financial burden from the perspective as I'm a victim and I can't do anything because of my diabetes. And granted, I know there are people in different situations, and some of them are much more desperate than others. But when you're looking at yourself as the victim of, I have to spend all this money to stay alive, you have to recognize that you have choices to make, and that other people have choices, and other people have financial burdens that you may not know about. And it's always top of mind for us that when we are living with it, but we can't see what other people are dealing with. And while it's not easy for anybody, like given medical stuff or family stuff or whatever you're dealing with. And I think that not feeling like you're the only one and feeling like you're the victim and the person who's put upon, that makes it worse. Now, dealing with the logistical and actually paying for things, that's challenging. But there are resources that you can use to make it easier. And luckily, over the past couple of years, those resources have increased with legislation around insulin pricing, and the CGM companies are doing things to make things more affordable. But at the same time, again, that's the reason diabetes sucks, and recognizing that it's there and that it does suck, and not trying to sugarcoat it, but also not trying to doing your best to make it suck as little as it has to, but recognizing it does, as opposed to letting the story fuel and get you to a place where you're going to be in a bad place mentally.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So accept that it's not going to be great. Learn about what your resources are, make the best choice, and
Yeah.
then yeah, move on. Look at it from that perspective of it is what it is. Yeah.
And it's not an easy situation at all.
Yeah, it isn't. And I think it's also just so complicated. I had to pick a new insurance plan after getting married. I had two to choose from, and I spent 3 hours reading about the different plans to try and figure out which one would be cheaper. And it just took so long and so much Googling and calling people. And I thought it would be nice if we could make it simpler.
And I was talking to somebody yesterday in the UK, in the UK where they have NHS,
Mhm.
where medical care is free. And she was having all kinds of trouble with not paying for things, but getting access to things. Like getting to get on the Omnipod 5, she had to go jump through so many hoops because they didn't want to give it to her. And to get a new vial of insulin took so much effort. And the grass isn't always greener, or it seems like it's greener over there, but like, there are different challenges. And so recognizing that our system isn't easy, their system may look better, but it's also not easy. And coming to terms with that and then doing the best that we can and always ask for help.
It's the way people chime in and help each other is really awesome. But I agree with you. It's not easy, but we can handle it, as you would say. Or
How
and we
about
Yeah, there we
and
go. And we can handle it. Awesome. We've only got about 3 minutes left on our timer, but is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up? I've really appreciated this.
No, I think the only thing I say is like if you're dealing with stress, if you're dealing with anxiety around diabetes, you're normal. Really the best thing you can do is to find a community, whether it's my community, whether it's Facebook community, whether it's a community in your local community, to meet with people with diabetes. Because the one thing that I've seen consistent are the people that I work with who are really having struggling or really having struggles is that when I ask them the question, who else do you know with diabetes? Their answer is nobody. And people who know people with diabetes are almost always doing much better because not that they are less burned out or frustrated or anxious, but because they know that they're not the only one. And if you're not the only one, you're going to be, you're going to feel less isolated, feel more normal, and feel less alone.
Yeah, yeah. And that was true for me. I was pretty dysfunctional with diabetes until I got sent to a summer camp with other kids. And I realized I could do it because there were other kids that were figuring it out too. And it makes all the difference. So I completely agree with that. That's the number one thing I would recommend somebody to. So I love that we align there. Awesome. Great. Thanks. I appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
And I
And
love your name. My daughter's name is Hannah.
oh, really? How old's your daughter?
She's 6.
6. Oh, that's awesome.
She scared me yesterday because in my wife's car the other day, she wet her pants, which is like not usual for her at all. And I was asking her on the way to school yesterday, I was like, what happened? And she gave me this answer that didn't really make sense. I'm like, are you going to the bathroom a lot? She's like, yeah, like 6 times a day. And I was like, I think she was like making, I don't think this was actually true. And she's like, are you really thirsty? Yeah. Are you really tired? Yeah. I was like, I've got to school. I'm like, I'm going to prick your finger.
Yeah,
No. I was like, yeah. So, but I'll give you extra ice cream tonight. So I pricked her finger. Her blood sugar was completely fine.
perfect. Oh,
But like,
that's
but for
scary.
that, the 5 minutes in the car, I was like, oh my gosh, not, it's not
So,
I set up for it in general, but also not today.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that is super scary, but I'm
But
glad
she's good.
good. Our timer is about to cut off here in a few seconds. So
No
we'll see.
problem.
Thanks again. Bye.